in another video, I told you about the reason Cambyses went to Egypt to attack and conquer Egypt, and Cambyses seems like he didn't have plans to go to Egypt, but he was persuaded by one physician, an Egyptian physician, to go to Egypt. And there was a reason this physician wanted Cambyses to go to Egypt. This physician had been sent to Persia as part of like a gift to Cyrus the Great. During this time, Egyptians were known to produce the best physicians in the world. And so this guy was, alongside other physicians, sent to Persia to go treat the king, Cyrus the Great. So after Cyrus died, he became the physician for Cambyses, the son. Now, he didn't like his stay in Persia. He missed his family in Egypt, and he still had some hard feelings towards Amasis, and he kind of wanted to punish him for what he had made him go through. And so how he went about that is getting Cambyses or persuading Cambyses. Herodotus doesn't tell us how he went about persuading Cambyses to go to Egypt. But anyways, he did succeed to persuade Cambyses to go to Egypt. Now, here we have another physician who persuaded a Persian king to go to war with his own people. This time it's not an Egyptian physician, it is a Greek. He wasn't Greek, he was, I think, Roman physician. He came from a place called, that used to be called Crotona, which is now some place in Calabria in Italy. So this guy was born, his name is Democedes. So Democedes was born in Crotona. Herodotus tells us that his father was very cruel, so he didn't like the experience he had with his father. So when he was of age but very young, he left Crotona and went to to a Greek island known as Aegina, and here he became a physician. Herodotus doesn't tell us how he became a physician or how he learned, but later on Democedes himself does say that he did work under a certain physician, and at Aegina he became successful. He improved his skill and he became very successful, and later on, indeed, the government of Aegina hired him. Initially, he was working as a private physician, taking care of private citizens, but at some point, the government of the island hired him and they were paying him very well. And then later on, he got hired by the Athenians. He moved to Athens, and because they offered him a better pay, and he worked there. He continued improving, becoming better. Then at some point he moved to Samos, and that's after the tyrant of Samos, Polycrates. That name gives me trouble even from the previous video. Offered him even better pay, and he moved to Samos, and he continued becoming better and better and better. And now in Samos, he became like a personal physician to Polycrates. He moved around with him. Now, in the previous video, I told you about this Polycrates, that he was this guy who was too much lucky, according to Amasis, the Egyptian king, who was his friend. And Amasis had to cut the friendship because he thought Polycrates was too much successful, and it was his understanding that anybody was that much successful, everything seemed to go well, and you never have anything go wrong for you, then in the end something goes wrong, and when it goes wrong, it goes very bad. So this is the Polycrates that Democedes was working for. So when Polycrates, his downfall came when he was tricked to go to Sardis by one Oroetes. Democedes was one of the people who accompanied him to Sardis. And when they reached Sardis, Polycrates was killed by Oroetes. for reasons that I gave in the previous video, that it was just an ego thing, because somebody challenged him that there is this Samos next door to Sardis and you've not conquered it. What's wrong with you? And he went ahead and tricked Polycrates to come to Sardis, and then he killed him. And then he took the people who came with Polycrates, he made some of them slaves. He killed some of them, then he made some of them slaves. One of those who was made a slave is Democedes. Now, Democedes became a slave, and he became a slave for a while until Oroetes had an issue with Darius the Great. Darius the Great is now the king in Susa. Oroetes continues to manage Lydia, Sardis, and the region around, but he starts becoming kind of like rebelling. He no longer takes instructions from Susa, and Darius becomes impatient with him. He decides to send him messengers, and Oroetes kills these messengers. He doesn't want to be under Darius. Now Darius decides to send another guy who came in a way that he tricked his way into having Oroetes killed by the Persians who were in Sardis. Now, after Oroetes is killed, Democedes is one of the slaves who are taken because they were property of Oroetes. So Darius the Great had said that he wants all the wealth that Oroetes held to be taken to Susa, and it now goes, most likely it went into the ownership of the king. So part of that wealth was the slaves. Democedes was one of the slaves, and they are taken to Susa. Now, around this time when Democedes is coming to Susa, Darius has an accident, and he has an uncle. As he was trying to ride his horse, he like fell down, and then he had an ankle dislocation, and of course, his Egyptian physicians tried to take care of it, but they made the matter worse. They kind of like trying to put back the joint, but they didn't do it the right way, and it became very painful for Darius. He could not sleep. And then, because these Egyptian physicians were doing everything and it seemed not to work, somebody mentioned to Darius that there is this slave we brought from Sardis. His name is Democedes. He has the reputation of being a very good physician. He's worked for many kings and tyrants and in many parts of world by then, and he has been very successful. So Darius says, okay, bring him to me. Democedes is brought to Darius, and Darius asks him, so are you a good physician? And Democedes initially denied because he felt like if he said, yes, I'm a good physician, then he could not have a chance to go back home. Because for all these years he had been a slave, the one thing he wished for is to go back to Crotona, to his home. So he said, no, I'm not. Then Darius threatened him that he was going to whip him and do some things on him, and he said yes, but he didn't say that I'm a very good physician. He just said that I used to work with a physician, so I know a few things about medicine. So he was like, oh, I need you to take care of me. So he started taking care of Darius' uncle, and in fact almost immediately there is success there. The pain goes away. For the first time in a very long time, Darius is able to sleep well, and over time he heals very well and is happy. And in fact, now Democedes becomes a person he really values, and he decides to kill the Egyptian physicians, but Democedes tells him, no, don't kill them, and he listens because now he values this guy very much because he's healed him. Then he introduces him to his wives. Darius had many wives. Some he had married after becoming the king. Some he had inherited from Cambyses. So he introduces him to his wives. His wives give Democedes a lot of gold. Herodotus says they give him a lot of gold. And in a short while, Democedes becomes very comfortable in Susa. He has his own apartment, nice place. He eats at the king's table every evening, and he basically becomes the royal physician. Now, it became that he could get anything he wanted from Darius. He just had to ask. But there was one thing that Darius could not give him or could not compromise, and that is allowing him to go back to his home, allowing Democedes to go back to Crotona. So while Democedes is being made comfortable, he's not happy. He's not happy being in Persia. He wants to go back home. Then an opportunity came for him. It came to him, rather. Atossa, one of Darius' wives. Remember, Atossa, I've mentioned her a few times in the past. Atossa was the daughter of Cyrus the Great, and then Atossa got married to Cambyses, her own brother. So Atossa becomes sick. She has a boil on one of her breasts. Initially, she doesn't say it because she's embarrassed, but it becomes worse, and then at some point she has to talk to the royal physician, Democedes, and she tells him how sick she is. She shows him, and then Democedes tells her, "I'm going to treat you, but I need you to do something for me. Promise that what I'm going to ask you after you've recovered, you're going to do it for me." And then he tells her, "And I promise you it's not something that is going to embarrass you." So basically telling her, it's not like I want sexual favors or anything, it's something else. But I'm not going to tell you at this point what it is until you've recovered. So he starts treating her, and she recovers. And now he goes back to her and he tells her what he wants. And she goes to Darius one time, and now she's healed. Now she's trying to do what Democedes has given her some instructions on what she wants. He needs her to do for him. So she goes to Darius and tells Darius, this is the statement, the quote: "It seems to me strange, my lord, that with the mighty power which you have, you sit idle. You are not making any conquest, nor advance the power of the Persians." So she tells him, "You are so powerful, but you're just sitting idle. You are not using that power. You are not conquering any more land for Persia." She goes on to tell him, in that one who is so young and so richly endowed with wealth should perform some noble achievement to prove to the Persians that it's a man who governs them. She's trying to push him in some way, that you need to prove to Persians that indeed you're a man. You need to do something. Another reason too, I urge you to attempt some enterprise. Not only does it befit you to show the Persians that a man rules them, but for your own peace you should waste their strength in wars, so that idleness does not breed revolt against your authority. So he tells him, it is good to show Persians that it's a man who rules them, but it will also help you, because in another way, it will make Persians so focused in the wars that they will not organize some revolt against you. Now too, whilst your art is still young, you may well accomplish some exploit, for as the body grows in strength, the mind too ripens. As the body ages, the mind's power decay, till at last it becomes dulled to everything. So he tells you, you're still young, and this is the right time for you to do things like go to war, conquer, because if you just sit, you are growing old, and as you grow old, you no longer you lose your power, and then you can't do anything. So Remember, this is what Democedes had told Atossa to tell the king. And he has a goal. There is a reason he's telling the king this. Then Darius tells the Atossa, "Dear lady, you have uttered the very thoughts that occupy my brain. I am minded to construct a bridge which shall join our continent with the other, and so carry war into Scythia. Yet a brief space, and I will be accomplished as you desire." So Darius tells Atossa, yeah, the things you're saying are things I've been thinking about. I've been thinking about how to go out there, wage war, conquer some land, show Persians that indeed I'm also a man, like the other kings that have ruled before me. And he tells her that he has plans to have a bridge constructed between Persia and the lands that was occupied by a tribe of people called Scythians. I think it was to the north of Persia or northwest of Persia. But the Atossa doesn't like that focus that Darius is having, because she's been given specific instructions by Democedes. So she attempts to take his focus away from Scythia into Greece, and she persuades him that it's better Scythians can be conquered so easily, and that will not be like a big thing. Why not go after the Greeks? Like that will give you even better, you will express your power even better if you are able to fight and conquer the Greeks. And she tells her that she also wants to have Lacedaemonian maids. Lacedaemonians was a tribe of Greeks, and she tells him that she had heard that maids from that tribe were very good, so she wants to experience that. She wants to get those maids to come work for her. In the end, she's successful in persuading Darius. So Darius forms a team of spies who have to go and investigate the Greek land and see how they can bring in an army and attack. So and now Atossa tells Darius, "I think we have the best man to lead this group of spies to go to Greece and do the investigation, and that is Democedes." So Democedes is called and is told, "Oh, I want you to guide this group of Persian spies to go to Greece and do some surveillance, and then you'll bring a report to us, and then we'll put together an army and go attack." Democedes is happy, but he doesn't want to show it. And then the king tells him, while you're going on this mission, feel free to take some of the wealth you've accumulated here and take it to your own family. Democedes tells the king, "No, I'm not taking anything. I'll just go. Then maybe when I come back, then I'll take them," because he thinks he suspects that the king is trying to trap him. Maybe the king is trying to find out whether he's the one who's pulling some strings behind Atossa. So he refuses to take any wealth. So they leave. They go to the coast of the Mediterranean, and they take ships. That's the place where the Phoenicians lived. They take ships, that could be Jordan or that region, Israel, Jordan, going upwards. So they take ships and they buy goods, and they present themselves as business people, as traders, and they start to sail. So they sail and they reach an island called, I don't think it's an island, but a place called Tarentum. Tarentum was kind of like a kingdom, small kingdom. So they go to Tarentum, and Tarentum was in it was a region, part of Italy today. So they go to Tarentum, and when they reach there, Democedes is known by some people in Tarentum, including the tyrant or the king of that region. And Democedes sets the Persians up, and he has them arrested and thrown in jail, and then he escapes and he goes to Crotona. So after he had escaped, the Persians are then freed. But instead of them going back home, they pursue him to Crotona. And they go to Crotona and they find him in walking around in a marketplace. And they try taking him by force, and the people around him start fighting not really fighting them, but resisting them, telling them, no, you can't take him away, this is his home. Democedes, with the help of these people, succeeds in avoiding the Persians from taking him. So the Persians, before they leave, he tells them, I want you to go and tell Darius that I'm about to marry a daughter of one of the prominent families in Crotona. And this was meant to tell Darius that I am not really a slave, because me marrying this family, it means that I'm not supposed to be a slave. So he escaped that way. The Persians left. Herodotus tells us that when the Persians were going back home, they reached some island and they were captured by some Greeks, and they were made to be slaves for a while. Then there was another tyrant or ruler of another island who came, rescued them, and then took them to Persia. And he went with them as a bargaining chip. He wanted the Persians to help him fight some more, which is a different story. So that's how another physician persuaded a Persian king to go to war.